Why, hello there, and welcome to my channel. My name is Leah, and I'm a new progressive YouTuber. I am here. This is my second YouTube show, and I am here to talk to you about the stories that I think are important, talk about issues I think are important, try to build awareness, spread awareness, build a friendly community, all that wonderful stuff. So if that's something that you're interested in, then you should stick around for sure. I made a video kind of going over in more detail, like who I am and why I'm here. So if you're interested in that, you should definitely check that out. I do want to jump straight into the show today because we have so much to talk about. So much is happening. It's kind of wild. I'm doing a Wednesday and a Saturday show. So my last show I recorded on Friday night, and I am here with a lot to talk about. So we're going to jump into the first story, which is this Trump assassination attempt that happened. And I mean, I cannot believe this story and everything going into it. And honestly, like, I thought about doing a couple like videos like just off my phone or something, or doing something fast to try to get something up like as soon as this news was breaking. But I'll be totally honest with you, I'm glad I didn't. And the reason why I'm glad I didn't do one of those like quick videos to try to get clicks and stuff for my channel is because, quite honestly, we still don't know a lot about this assassination attempt, how it all really happened, went down, all the specific details of the shooter and stuff. There are still quite a few unknowns, but I just figure there's enough here already now that I feel comfortable like talking about like what happened, the basic information that we know about the shooter and stuff. Now, like, motive and everything is still super unclear. There's still a lot that's super unclear, but it does seem like I feel confident that I can report like quite a few details here that are going to be factual and not just guesses and stuff like that. I watched a lot of the coverage as this news story was breaking, and there were a lot of people reporting a lot of different things. And like, I would say like 30% of it was true or whatever. Like, there were a lot of assumptions were made. And that's something that I don't want to do with my channel, is like, I don't want to just start assuming things before we have confirmed details. Like, I don't want to just like build a narrative around something just because I think that's what's going on or whatever, you know, like how people do that. So that's one thing that I can promise you, is that I'm always going to bring you the facts and the real info. I'm not going to try to hide or obscure anything or overly narrativized stuff. So I'm sure that everyone's already seen it a whole bunch of times, but just want to show real quick the assassination attempt. It's kind of wild.
That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened. Let me get my shoes. I got you, sir. Let me get my shoes, sir. Hold that in your head. It's bloody. So we got to move to the bus. Let me get my shoes. Okay, my shoes down. Watch out.
So that's the footage of the assassination attempt. And we have to start off by saying, like, of course, this is like crazy bad. Like, this is not a good thing. Like, we do not want political violence in our country. We do not want assassination attempts happening. That is not how we are going to solve the political issues plaguing our country, the issues plaguing our country. Violence is not going to get us there. That is like accelerationist mentality stuff where it's like doomerism, nihilism, nothing matters. The only thing that matters is burning everything down. And honestly, I do not think that that is a healthy mindset. I don't think that it's good for people to condone this kind of stuff or wish that it had been successful or anything like that. I think it's good that former President Trump is alive. I think that it is good that he was not killed. I think that it would have been probably a worse situation for everyone involved if he had been killed. So I do want to say just that right off the bat. Obviously, political violence, no good. The next thing I want to talk about is that like Trump is the luckiest man alive. I mean this genuinely. After paying attention to politics for like the past 6 or 7 years, I feel like it has become abundantly clear to me that like it's like bad luck, and Trump are like oil and water. It's crazy. It's like every time something happens to him, he just has a way of just like it's not like he does anything. It's not like he's like particularly skillful at navigating situations. It just seems like he's able to wiggle out of a very many bad situations. And I'm not saying that like it was anything that he particularly did that like saved him during the shooting, but he did turn his head. And we know that if he hadn't turned his head, that trajectory would have been different for that bullet. So him snapping his head over last second, I mean, that is like, holy cow, like he is so lucky. Like early on, it was reported that it wasn't even like a gunshot wound. It was reported that he was like hit by a piece of glass or something like that, or like he was like hurt while tackled to the ground. Because I mean, if you get shot somewhere in the head area, your chances of survival are so like literally like your ear, the tip of your nose, like where is safe to get shot in the head? Not very many spots, right? So the reporting early on in and of itself is already indicative of how lucky he is, because the reporting was just like, you know, he wasn't even directly hit by a bullet, even though he was. Now, the story is shocking enough just like on face value, but like when we look into the details of how this all happened and everything that was going on, the story that arises is not what you would expect. I mean, when you think about a presidential rally and you think about an event like this, you think that like the security at these events must be insane. Like if you showed up with anything looking like a gun, they would kill you instantly, no questions asked, right? Like that is just kind of the assumption I think any sane person would make if they are thinking about like Secret Service, presidential events, things like that. Like I remember when Obama came and gave speeches and stuff in my hometown way back when. And like, I remember thinking about like, wow, there's going to be snipers on top of buildings that I like go to often, you know, like there's going to be Secret Service everywhere. And that's like, that is something that you would just think would make one of these assassination attempts nearly impossible. But sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. And honestly, like looking into the story of the assassination and how it all played out, like we have eyewitness accounts of people talking about how they were able to see the shooter. They were watching, pointing him out. They saw the gun minutes before the shooting actually took place, like 3-4 minutes, even up to like 5 minutes before the shooting took place. We have eyewitness accounts of people seeing the shooter, shouting, there's a shooter, and apparently, well, let's just watch the video real quick.
I'm here with Joseph Mine. He was sitting actually behind Donald Trump in the bleachers today when this all unfolded. I'm going to let him share exactly what he saw. It was a very harrowing moment that he was there for. Can you please tell us what happened, Joseph?
Yeah, it was the Trump. I was attending the rally. It seemed initially like firecrackers went off. It was very confusing initially because I knew it was gunfire, but I couldn't quite tell where it was coming from. It sounded like it was coming from behind the bleachers, and the man in the bleachers, kind of to the right of me in the bleachers, took a gunshot wound to the head. Was killed, and another woman. I don't know exactly where she was in the bleachers. I think she was either behind me or to the right of me. She got around she got hit in the forearm and hand. It looked like, but if she was wounded, she wasn't killed.
Can I ask you how you're feeling? Obviously, you just witnessed something terrible happen. A lot of chaos was in the room. How exactly are you feeling right now, Joseph?
It's something you don't expect. It's a bolt out of the blue, so it's very shocking. It's just, I think a lot of people in the crowd just thought it was fireworks going off. I knew immediately it was gunshots. I knew they were close, and then when I saw someone get hit and go down, that's when I knew it was probably serious.
I just want to pause real quick to say, like, if you watch the footage as we did earlier and you see the assassination attempt, the crowd was obviously super confused. There was obviously a lot of confusion. It's, kind of close to 4th of July still, like we're still in July, and just people just did not seem to know how to react. People didn't seem to know what was going on. People didn't seem to know what they should do. Like there were a lot of people that didn't even really duck and cover. Like they didn't even really do much of anything. And now that's shocking. That's shocking to think, right? But like I saw an eyewitness account that said essentially that like people didn't realize that this was serious. People thought there was like some weird joke going on, and there's like the energy at these rallies must be really bizarre, because like people were apparently like pointing to the shooter and yelling there's a shooter and stuff like that, and there were other people who weren't really like catching on that this was like actually a serious moment and stuff like that. Very bizarre. Very, very bizarre. It just goes to show that like we all think we're going to react perfectly when these kinds of like crisis events happen. Like you think like in your head, like, oh, if there was a shooter, this is what I would do. Oh, if this happened, this is what I would do. And like shock can make people do the strangest things and act very contrary to how you think they would act in a stressful situation.
It's a lot of confusion. It's just massive confusion, throughout the event. I saw Donald Trump get hit. It looked like he was either, I was running my camera at the time, but it looked like he was just turning his head to the side, and it looked like he got grazed in the right ear with a bullet. I kind of saw that go on, and then I looked down, I saw that the man, had died in the bleachers. It was just complete pandemonium. Like there was a bit of a delay, like there was a lot of confusion, but immediately, it seemed like more gunfire erupted. I couldn't figure out where that was coming from, and then, there was a state policeman there. I believe a SWAT team, showed up relatively quickly. They jumped the side. There was a fence, it was next to the bleachers. They jumped the bleachers and started clearing the bleachers.
We're going to back away from this. I could show you other eyewitness accounts that are also kind of talking about the events that went on, specifically people talking about how they saw the shooter, they were pointing to him, they made a big deal about like, this guy is trouble, something's not right here. All right, so if we look at the layout of the Pennsylvania rally, you can see like this is the stage where Donald Trump was speaking, and the shooter was on a roof nearby outside of the actual event, but still relatively close to the event, like, pretty close. And then the Secret Service were over here by the former president, and they had a pretty clear sight line to the shooter. So as far as the reporting goes, there are people all over this area kind of saying, hey, something's not right. Hey, we see this guy with this gun. There's something going on. And the Secret Service are over here kind of like scoping the guy out, and sort of like it seems like the Secret Service, if you look at some of the reporting, noticed the shooter like up to a minute or 2 or 3 before he took the shot, and it seems like they hesitated. It seems like they didn't know what was going on, and that honestly led to a lot of conspiracy theories. There are a ton of conspiracy theories about this shooting, and I don't want to feed into any of those because, quite frankly, I think it's Occam's razor. I just think the security wasn't good enough. Donald Trump has been campaigning for 8-10 years at this point. Like he has done this a lot. He is a seasoned campaigner or whatever. And honestly, like, kind of seems like it was maybe bound to happen at some point. Like, if you campaign enough and you're as vitriolic as Donald Trump is, like, it's not only leftists that have disdain for Donald Trump, it's also people on the right, too. Like, there are people that are more conservative than Donald Trump that see through his, like, rhetoric and see through his false conservatism. And they realize that, like, he's not a real conservative. Like, to Donald Trump, it's really just all rhetoric, and it's not really much deeper than that. All right, so now I want to talk about who did it. I want to talk about the shooter, and the reason I want to talk about that is because it's really important. I mean, immediately after the shooting, there were a lot of assumptions, and I'll even say myself, I was really scared that this was a left-winger, but it seems like this is honestly, I hate to say this, like, best case scenario in terms of like what we know about the shooter and who they might have been and what their motives might have been in terms of like the election and stuff. As much as I would like to talk about this separately from the campaign and the election coming up and everything like that, that's just not going to happen. This is all incredibly relevant, incredibly important. And honestly, this had the potential to just completely end the election cycle season already. Like this is such a big event that it had the possibility to be like the campaign's over. Like, Biden lost kind of thing. And honestly, if it had been like a Biden supporter, staunch Biden supporter who had done this, that would have been almost a nail in the coffin for the Democrats. And actually, we're going to talk about it later in a different story, but there are Democrats who, since the shooting, have resigned themselves to Trump winning. And I think that that says a lot about how people felt immediately after the shooting. Again, violence is not okay ever. And that's exactly why this is so scary for anyone on the left, because we see this and we realize how good this is for Donald Trump. I mean, if he had been actually taken out by the shooter, he would have been martyred forever. And the MAGA movement would have been, I mean, we don't even know what that timeline looks like or would have looked like, but I'm glad that we're not in that timeline. So we're going to look at a couple articles here, just to like learn more about the shooter and why he might have done this and who he was. His name was Thomas Matthew Crooks, and he was a 20-year-old. We do not know much about his political leanings or the details of like his political beliefs and stuff like that, because he did not have a strong social media presence. But what we do know is that we have a couple reports from classmates and the like that we will get into, and that sort of paints a picture as to like who he was and why he might have done this. So I want to start off by saying that reports from classmates kind of say that he was bullied a lot, say that he was a loner, say that like he didn't really express a lot. He was very quiet and he was bullied a ton. People picked on him for the way he looked, said that he was very smart, took honor classes, was shy. He had a group of friends that were fairly conservative, some of whom would wear Trump hats. And there was just a lot of chatter about him being different. People said he had a retro nerd kind of vibe. One classmate said that they were shocked that he did something like this, considering that he was so quiet and he was so reserved as a person. One thing we can learn from this article is that the gun that was used was an AR style weapon. It was an AR-15 and it was purchased by Crook's father. And so essentially he was able to get a hold of his father's gun. It seems like he probably had easy access to it because he was into rifle shooting. Like he was wearing a shirt from a gun YouTuber. So it seems like he was interested in guns as a hobby. Apparently he tried out for a rifle team and was rejected due to like bad aim and stuff like that, or like he just didn't make the cut for the team or whatever. Not rejected, just didn't make the cut for the team. And it just like, it kind of seems like he went to the range every now and then and practiced shooting and stuff like that. So it seems like he was probably just a person pretty interested in guns in general. So now let's talk about politically what his leanings probably were, how he probably viewed Trump, and what might have led him to do this assassination attempt. This is kind of going to be muddy waters. I will be speculating a smidge here, but I promise you I am only speculating based on the facts that I have seen reported about like what classmates have said and stuff like that. So we know that he was a loner. We know that he was bullied heavily. We know that he had easy access to an AR. And honestly, that does kind of sound like your typical, I hate to say typical, but like your typical mass shooter, school shooter who is troubled, you know, cis white male who is bullied and a loner and just loses it and decides like they can't take it anymore. This is the way they're going to go out. But if we look at this other article here, we see some reporting. He was definitely conservative. Former classmate recounted a history class he took with Crooks. While most of the students in the class leaned liberal, he said Crooks stood out for his conservative viewpoint. He definitely was conservative. That's still the picture I have of him, just standing alone on one side while the rest of the class was on the other. It says like he never really spoke out about his political views. He had very few friends, but not really a whole friend group. She did not recall him showing any animosity towards Trump or sharing any political thoughts at all. So he never spoke outwardly about his political views or how much he hated Trump or anything. So what's my read on this? Like, what do I take away from the fact that like he was definitely conservative, but a troubled kid and had easy access to a gun? I think there are two likely outcomes in terms of motive for the shooter, why he probably did this. And I think it was either that he was bullied so much that he just decided like this was the way to go out. He cement his name in history forever, and he would just, you know, have a way out essentially. Like, I mean, if you do something like this, you're not going to live. Like if you go to try to assassinate a former president or a president or an elected official, I feel like that is essentially forfeiting your life. The other possibility is that he was very staunchly conservative. He just really didn't like Trump and saw Trump as being toxic for the Republican Party. Now, people in that article did say that he didn't really say anything negative about Trump, but considering the very few friends he had were Trump supporters, it kind of would make sense that as a conservative, he felt a bit pressured to stay quiet about Trump and not maybe speak out about him. What if like his very few friends turned on him? You know, the people that actually hung out with him and didn't bully him relentlessly, what if they were to turn on him as well, if he were to turn on Trump? So it could have been sort of like a survival mechanism where he felt like he had to respect Trump or whatever, and maybe secretly deep down inside, he did not like Trump. I will say that I sort of think that the bullying and stuff like that could have been a possibility, but I do think that there is a very distinct possibility that this was politically motivated, because I do know that there are conservatives who view Trump as an existential threat to the Republican Party in general, because he has taken over so much of the mechanisms that run the Republican Party. He is so in control and has his people everywhere that it really is sort of like you have to, you know, be loyal to Trump or else you are going to be removed from the Republican Party. Like there is almost no room for dissent. But really, regardless as to why he did the shooting, I think it's really important to talk about the fact that this is not a progressive, this is not a leftist, this was not anyone remotely related to the left wing side of things. And I think that that's fantastic. I think that's good because that really limits the spin, the narrative stuff that Trump is going to be able to do with this. I think that it's still going to benefit him massively. He's still going to see a boost in his popularity. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of conservatives that are sort of not very politically involved that maybe see these pictures, they maybe see the shooting, and they think to themselves like, nobody deserves this, he doesn't deserve this really is a witch hunt, this really is a political persecution kind of thing, and you know, Trump deserves my vote or whatever like that. And even though the shooter was conservative, it could even still be used as a sort of like, he doesn't deserve this from his own party. Even his own party is turning against him. Like he deserves the support or whatever like that. There are ways that certain voters are going to view this just because he looks so strong. Like if you watch the video and you look at the images of Trump with his fist up and everything, the optics are just so good for Trump. And I mean, I hate to say this, but a lot of low information voters, the optics are like where it ends for them. And that's what they're going to go based off of. Okay, so that's like all the stuff that I feel has been like actually decently reported. Like there are a lot of speculations and stuff still flying around about this assassination attempt, but we do know that the shooter was a 20-year-old named Thomas Matthew Crooks. We know that he was conservative in his leanings. We know that he used an AR-15 for the shooting. We know that there were sightings of the shooter minutes, full like 5, maybe even 6 minutes before the shooting took place, where people were seeing and shouting and stuff like that. And there was an obvious security meltdown. There was obvious issues going on there where like the Secret Service saw the shooter before he took the shots, and they did not take the shots until the shooter did. And now, to be fair, the Secret Service immediately took out the guy. Like the guy took a couple shots, and I think 4 shots, and then the Secret Service, he was done. They took him out immediately right after. But the thing is that they didn't take the shots prior, and they could have prevented Trump from getting shot in the first place. So, you know, that was obviously a very big security failing. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of discourse about that, how that happened. And I'm sure that at future events, there's going to be a lot more security for this kind of stuff because they're going to be scared about more attempts like this. I know this is kind of a long one, so if you stuck it out and you watched this whole thing, I really appreciate you. This is kind of unprecedented. I mean, we have not seen a story like this in a really long time. I think it's been 40, 50 years since we've had something like this happen. And that is pretty crazy. I honestly am super shocked that we keep seeing unprecedented news like this happen in our lifetimes and stuff like that. There's just so much happening constantly that's like unprecedented, record breaking, first time in a long time, first time in a generation. It's a lot. It's a lot. So, you know, let's just try to stick with it. Let's try to stay positive. Let's try to remain optimistic about the future. I know that there are reports of things not looking so great for Biden and for the Democrats in general, and the possibility of a second Trump term is looming pretty heavily on everyone right now. I'm obviously terrified of that. That's why I'm here. That's why I want to try to make a difference. But yeah, if you enjoyed listening to me talk about things, if you enjoyed the way that I present the information or the way that I talk about stuff, I would love if you were to leave a like here on this video, maybe a comment. Let me know what you think about the whole thing going down. Let me know what you think this will do for the election and everything like that. And I will catch you hopefully in the next video. I'm going to move right on to the next segment here and start talking about that. So I will catch you in the next one. Until then, do me a little favor and